Hi guys, Darth Deuces here with another action figure review. Today taking a look at a Mcfarlane Toys figure. It is the Mcfarlane Toys Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn figure. A new Spawn figure, an articulated Spawn figure, and surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, but I think for most people surprisingly, a damn good figure from Mcfarlane Toys. I know when it comes to figures, for a lot of people, they're sketchy. They release some really good things. They release some really bad things, or people who think they're really bad at any rate. I think sometimes Mcfarlane gets the shit end of the stick from the community a little too much at times. I think sometimes people hate on Mcfarlane Toys just to hate on Mcfarlane Toys. But my opinions aside, this new Spawn is a really good. I would say as right now, it's probably one of my favorite figures of the year. It is absolutely fantastic. I have not been able to stop messing with it since I got it. Yeah, it's just for the money. You can't get much better than this, really. It's a really good. So this is part of the Mortal Kombat 11 line. If you're not aware, in the most recent game, which is Mortal Kombat 11, Spawn is a guest character, which is really cool because the community, I believe, has been wanting Spawn as a guest character for a long time. And I actually do play the game, and I play Spawn quite a bit. He's really fun to play. But yeah, let's stop rambling. Let's get into the figure. I'm just going to remove these accessories here. He doesn't come with... I'll talk about that gun later. He doesn't come with that gun. We'll cover the accessories here in a little bit, but I'm going to get the accessory out of his hand so we can just take a look at the figure. And as per Mcfarlane Toys, they're known for really good sculpts and paints, and that's no exception with Spawn. He is beautifully sculpted and painted. He is based on his design in the game, which is pretty, faithful to source material, but it is sort of a modern look. The suit has a much more organic texture to make it look more symbiotic and whatnot. It's not just like, looks like a more smoother superhero sort of suit. So yeah, let's take a look first at the head sculpt and the clasp there. The head sculpt's really good. It looks a lot better than I thought it was going to look. It has this shading around the eyes, which I thought I wasn't going to like, but I actually do like it quite a bit. I think it looks pretty good. And the eyes are a nice bright green that look really good. The white markings are not a perfect bright white. There's actually a bit of shading and extra color thrown into the white to make it look a little dirtier and not just clean, which is really cool. You can see all the sculpted detail of the black suit. And I would say there's multiple colors going on in the black. It's not a straight pitch black. I think they might have thrown a little bit of light blue in there to really sort of make it look different, really bring out the sculpt with the much more shading and whatnot. You can kind of see he is a little glossy, but I don't mind that too much. It's not as bad in person. You have the chains with the clasper, the skulls should look really good, and again, black wash all throughout this figure. I'm not going to keep bringing it up, just it is all throughout the figure. You can see it best on the cape here. You got the collar here, which is made of a very pliable plastic. You can see just the crazy sculpt going on there. The cape itself is really nice. All these tatters and different layers and whatnot, sculpted and painted really well. Fairly pliable, it's pretty easy to move. It is glued to the back of the figure, however, so keep that in mind. It's all glued on the top. It isn't maybe quite as big as a traditional Spawn cape. We're getting that later this year with the Kickstarter Spawn figure of the remake of the very first Spawn figure from Mcfarlane, which I have actually backed, so later on, close to the end of the year, I'll hopefully have that figure, and we'll see how that stacks up with this one. We got the bicep band there with the red and the spikes. The spikes are actually fairly pointy, so you want to be careful of that, but that is really cool. Both hands are sculpted actually with some degree of trigger finger, which is kind of cool and kind of interesting because he doesn't come with any guns, but it's a character that is known for using guns. So I appreciate that they gave it there, but I'll talk more about accessories later. But you have the small gauntlet here, and you have the larger gauntlet with the hook over here, which looks really good. Got the torso and the white markings, which look good. And you can see the continuation of those on the back. He's got quite a defined butt. It's kind of funny, but this whole ass and crotch piece is like a rubber piece over the actual figure, which is kind of nice. It allows for more articulation. And you have these soft, pliable plastic or rubbery, I suppose, chains for the chains in the buckle there. I guess you'd call that belt buckle, I suppose. This one kind of likes getting caught there, but there we go. You can adjust those how you want to a certain extent. On the thigh here, you do have sculpted pouches, which has a nice black wash and paint detail for the buckles. It's not a free floating piece, it doesn't move, which I prefer actually. It's not going to slide around and fall off, which I like. And then on the legs, you do have the smaller sort of bands here with the spikes, and you have the larger boot, which looks pretty good in my opinion. So articulation wise, he's really good. I know with Mcfarlane, you never really know what you're going to get with articulation. Sometimes you get really well articulated figures. Sometimes you get figures that have all the points of articulation, but because of the sculpt, can't get full range of movement. And then sometimes you have Mcfarlane figures that are basically stanchion figures, which are meant to be only in one pose, are still given some points of articulation, but they're basically useless because they don't do anything really. But luckily, Spawn here, it's got everything you want. You have a ball joint at the neck. It might actually be a dumbbell joint. You can look up a decent amount, look down a bit, rotation, and you can pivot a decent amount, so you get a lot of expression out of the head. Really cool. At the shoulder here, there is actually a floating kind of butterfly joint in there, so you can bring the arm forward and back just a little bit. It's not too crazy, and move it around. You also get a ball hinge at the shoulder. It moves up very well, down all the way, and you can rotate it. So at the bicep, double hinge at the knee, elbow, which just goes slightly past 90. It is hindered a bit because of the gauntlet sculpts. This one might be able to bend a little further. This one bends slightly further. But yeah, there's still decent bend. It's what you want for the most part. And you do have hinges at the wrist with a swivel, so you can get them, if you play around with them, you can get them going in and out or up and down, whatever you want them to do. Ball joint here, so you can, there's actually two, there's a joint here and there's a joint here, so we can do quite a good crunch forward, move backwards a bit, really good pivot, and then rotation. Obviously rotating breaks the sculpt, but there's sacrifices need to be made for articulation, which I am all for. You have hinges at the hips, so you can kick them out pretty good. You can do some crazy splits. There's no bicep swivel, which is a little annoying, but it doesn't get into too much, doesn't get in the way of too much articulation. Double hinges at the knees, which move quite well. The joints are a little ugly, but they're not too bad. And then you get rotation at the ankle, hinge up and down. It clicks a bit. You do get some pretty good pivot, and you do get a toe hinge, which doesn't really do anything, but it is there, so I guess it doesn't hurt anything, so that's cool. So as you can see, great articulation. You can get this guy in a ton of poses, and I have no issues posing him at all. It is a figure that's an absolute joy just to mess with and pose around, which I really like. I mean, some figures, you put them in one pose and then you don't really want to touch them again. This one, you want to keep posing different poses, so that's awesome. In terms of accessories, this guy doesn't come with much. What he does come with is cool, but he definitely could have came with some more stuff. But you do get the standard stands they've been giving the figures lately. It's just the plastic circular matte black Mortal Kombat stand, and you can plug it into there, and it can help get some super dynamic poses, I suppose, to support those poses. But he doesn't really need this to actually stand, but you do get it, so that's appreciated. Then for his weapon, you do get the sword here, and the sword's really cool. This is from the first run. There is a second run of this figure that's going to come with the mace instead of the sword. I believe the mace was supposed to be just a chase variant, but now it's just going to be the complete second run of this figure. So this version with the sword might become hard to obtain, unfortunately. I'm not sure, but it kind of sucks. But the sword's really nice. You have a really cool Spawn logo there. It's on both sides. Got black in the middle, and you got the blade with a nice black wash to really bring out the details. Red on the hilt. And he holds the sword really well. It's kind of interesting they actually included the sword as his weapon, because I think he only uses it in like 1 or 2 actual moves. He doesn't really use it much in his actual kit. He uses his necro abilities, his chains, and his guns more than he uses the sword. And that's kind of like segueing into one of my complaints. It would have been nice if this guy came with some guns. He does use guns in the game, or you can choose to use guns for him in the game. And Spawn just has always been a character that has never been shy to using firearms. So it would have been cool to get at least one gun with him. Just give him a few more options. That would have been cool. However, you can give him some other guns, which I will get into in a moment with the comparisons, which I'm going to do now. So here is Spawn. This is a 7-inch figure from a 7-inch line. Just to give you an idea of how he scales up with some of the other figures in the Mortal Kombat lineup. Here he is with Sub-Zero from the first wave. They stand about the same height, which I think is fine for the context. And here he is with a little more recent Raiden. So I think they all scale pretty well, you know. They should be probably around the same size, more or less. I think Raiden might be slightly taller, but he's a god, so I'll let that's probably accurate, or at least close. With another 7-inch Mcfarlane figure, here he is with the Color Tops Commando Spawn from a few years back. This is what I mean by a statue figure. He's only meant to be in his pose, yet they still give him some points of articulation, like a hinge in the knee here, which is basically useless because the ankle is molded like this. But what's pretty cool is because this is, you know, same scale of figure. He comes with 3 different guns. These guns work perfectly for this figure, so put them off the side there. As you saw in the beginning of the video, I take this rifle, assault rifle, which looks pretty similar to the gun he uses in the game. It's not quite the same, but it's pretty similar. Came from this figure, but you can get it into his hands with no real issue. And like I said, it takes a bit of work. He does have a trigger finger for it. He grips the gun really well, and this gun just fits so well for this figure. So I've been displaying him and posing him with this gun. I think it looks fantastic. Sorting gun in hand. If he came with a saw like this, I think that would have been really cool. But if you have this figure, or if you can get this figure for cheap, which I don't know if you can now, but if you have this figure, you can definitely use the guns from it, and it works perfectly. And then lastly, just so you can see how he stacks up with the 6-inch figure, here's the Netflix Daredevil from Marvel Legends. Spawn is definitely significantly taller and bigger, although I do see Spawn as a somewhat bigger character, so if you wanted to, with posing, dynamic posing and whatnot, you could probably fudge him into a 6-inch display if you so wanted to, or use him for toy photography if you wanted to with 6-inch figures. Anyways, that's about it overall. I think this is an absolute phenomenal figure from Mcfarlane. Like I said, it's probably one of my favorites of the year so far. We'll see how it stacks up with the Kickstarter figure that's going to come out later on this year. But I absolutely love this figure. Unfortunately, it's a bit hard to get your hands on it just because of all the things going on right now. But if you're a Spawn fan, and even if you're just an action figure fan, if you're not too familiar with Spawn, you just want a really cool action figure, highly recommend picking this one up for, you know, the $20 USD, $25 Canadian. If you can get it for retail, totally worth it. Absolutely phenomenal figure. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe if you want to see more, like the video. Check out my Instagram in the description, and I will see you all in the next video.